All right, undrafted viewers, welcome to the U. Today we're talking about some NFL football. Free agency season has in full swing right now. Not a lot of news. Draft coming up soon, so we're gonna go over a few little points. Honestly, biggest news out of the NFL in this past week: Russell Wilson. It has been reported and confirmed. Russell Wilson called for Pete Carroll's job before getting traded to the Broncos. Obviously, Seahawks kept Carroll and made the playoffs. Russell Wilson then went on to have the worst season of his career, and Broncos missed the playoffs. What do you guys want to say about this? I mean, I've heard a lot of stories about Russell Wilson being a really bad teammate. I've heard Richard Sherman talk bad about him, Earl Thomas. It seems like a very unlikable guy. So what do you guys have to say about this?
Going into the season, I thought the Broncos were going to be good, but this year has taught me that, I do not like Russell Wilson after this year.
Yeah.
And that makes me just so happy that Pete Carroll and the Seahawks made the playoffs and Russell Wilson didn't. That's just awesome. That's a storybook ending to a situation that really, shouldn't have happened. Why was he calling for his job?
Won a Super Bowl with him. I really don't know. I think he's just an ungrateful human being, to be honest.
He wants to get as much as he can out of his franchises, apparently.
I think he is more concerned about being a celebrity than being a good football player and being a good teammate, which is really sad, to be honest.
Worried about his image.
If Marshawn Lynch doesn't like you, there's something wrong. That's all I'm going to say. Do you want to say anything about Russell Wilson?
Yeah, I think the whole situation between him and Pete Carroll obviously blew up, but I'm not here to write off Russell Wilson just yet. I think one bad season can't determine, how good you'll be in the next three. I mean, obviously, studies show that, as you get older, you're not the best. But I still think you can't write off Russell Wilson. New coaching, obviously.
Sean Payton.
Yep, Sean Payton down in Denver, obviously, coached Drew Brees, and now he's got Russell Wilson, who's obviously been, a superstar in the league for how many years now. But I think Russell Wilson can improve. I think he can, learn from his mistakes and bring the Broncos to where they had a.
Listen, I wasn't saying he's gonna be a bad quarterback from now on. I still think he's gonna it only goes up from last season.
It cannot go down. So yeah.
But it really he showed his true colors this season. I think. And
anything you want to say about Russell Wilson? You're a notorious hater.
I'm not gonna smack talk his game. He's been great in the past. I will give that to him. He had a terrible season this year. But just as a person, dude, you hear about, the whole office, he had his own office.
On the second floor.
At Denver's facility, and now this, I could write him off as a person. What a douchebag. But.
He thinks he's bigger than the team. And
that's where I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. He wants to be a celebrity, and it's just he's dating future sloppy seconds. Yeah, you're not a celebrity, Russell Wilson. Football player first. All right. Next point I want to get into. The NFL teams have been proposing a new rule to make roughing the passer reviewable, just like how pass interference got changed. I think this is a great rule.
I love that.
There's been, I'm even thinking about that Tom Brady game against, who was it, the Cowboys? One of the games this year, I think it was the Panthers, actually. Absolute bogus roughing the passer, and I think this is great because that rule has gotten in such a little gray area of what's allowed, what's not. I think this is a great rule that the team should all agree.
I think it's great too because unfortunately with the NFL Players Association looking out for player safety, which I'm all for, it has made many foul calls, especially many penalties, especially the roughing the passer one, OD, that it actually has such a huge effect on every game now. So I like that. I like that
a lot.
I like this obviously because the way that I think refs do a really good job, managing the game. Obviously
they're human.
Obviously there's error, but I think now that with this roughing the passer, you could challenge it, is so good on the game because, you can't hate on the ref after the call, you know what I mean? You could review it, you can look back, obviously you can see what happened and what didn't, but I think now that, with this whole gray area of roughing the passer, pass interference, all that, with them being able to review it, I think it's a really good help for the safety and the change of football nowadays, so I really think this is a a really good idea.
I just think also on top of that, there's sometimes roughing the passer decides the ending of the game, and just like pass interference, it should be able to be reviewed. So I love this for the NFL. Teams still have to vote on it. It's not confirmed yet, but I absolutely love that. Next point we got. Jameis Winston has come out and said he thinks he will be the Saints starter on opening day of the NFL season. This is amidst Derek Carr rumors, even trading up in the draft has been mentioned with the Saints. So kind of out of nowhere, I thought Jameis would get shipped off, honestly, by now. You know, with that LASIK surgery, maybe some crab legs, he'd be out of there. I don't know. But I think this is honestly out of nowhere. I don't think I would ever think Jameis was going to stay. But what do you guys have to say about this?
I mean, this is Jameis talking. So if we wanna go by Jameis's word, then we'll go by that. But I mean, I don't think he'll end up being the starter. Straight up,
I do not think so.
So here's my thought on this. I think he could definitely end up being the starter, and here's the reason why. I think the Saints strike out with Derek Carr. I mean, obviously nothing's progressed. We talked about it last podcast. Derek Carr obviously clicked with Robert Saleh.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Saints, what they try to do is they try to trade for that number 1 pick with the Bears. And here's what the Saints give up. I think they give up their first-round pick this year if they have it. I don't know if they do. To get the first and trade away Michael Thomas. You know, Michael Thomas has not really fit the Saints anymore. Obviously, he's not even been playing. Gets hurt every,
2
second
games.
of the game. So I think the Bears might be willing to look at it, help out Justin Fields. You know, they don't really need the first pick. Got a star receiver out of it. Maybe obviously get a little more.
Time out. They definitely need the first pick, but they just need players. They don't need one good guy. So I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, they definitely need their first pick, but I feel like whoever they want, they could get at like 3 or 4. Like they don't really.
Exactly.
And
which is looking like Will.
about the Jameis thing, who knows? That's pretty much up to the Saints. Like if the Saints want to get someone else, then I feel like if they were to go through that effort and it's a decent guy, then start him over Jameis. But if they don't make any moves, then Jameis is your starter. He's the clear-cut best quarterback there.
So one thing I do want to add to this is following all the reports, the Saints have been moving cap around crazy, going from salary to bonuses to free up space for possibly Lamar Jackson to go back to his home of Louisiana. Or I think he's from Florida, same area, whatever. Go back to the South. I think that would be crazy. Him, Kamara, Chris Olave, Taysom Hill, read option Lamar Jackson, Taysom Hill, absolutely nuts. So that's something to look out for in free agency. And Saints. I don't know where they're going, but they're going somewhere. Next thing I want to bring up, the Rams. We have Robbie Singley right here, our resident Rams fan. Boo. I have no idea what the Rams are doing. Cut Bobby Wagner. Obviously, he's old. I don't know what's going on there. And have been rumored to be shopping Jalen Ramsey. Obviously, they're way over the cap. Even if they were to they got rid of Wagner. If they get rid of Ramsey, they still have Aaron Donald. They still have Cooper Kupp. They still have Matt Stafford. They have an aging O-line. Cam Akers. I don't get where the direction of this Rams organization's going. And I really don't know what the plan is. So, I mean, as a Rams fan, what do you want to see, or where do you think they're going?
So, what I hope is that they're using that. I hope they do trade away Jalen Ramsey, and I'm hoping that they kind of retool a little bit. They get pieces back from Jalen Ramsey because he's still one of the best corners in the league. So, I mean, but he is getting a little up there. He's older. He's getting older. So, get rid of Bobby Wagner. Get back pieces for Jalen Ramsey, and then go from there.
Retool. Okay.
Exactly.
What do you want to say about this, Boli?
Oh, man, I do not know. I think the Rams recently have been on an impulse kind of vibe. Like, they've just been, cutting this, trading for that. When they traded for Baker Mayfield, obviously they needed the quarterback. Obviously it didn't work. I mean,
You beat the Raiders. Who cares? Yeah, that was crazy.
Who knows? I mean, I think what could happen is the Rams obviously are trying to trade for, get rid of him. I think they do an impulse trade. It looks like they might get fleeced. Maybe it helps them down the road. Who knows? But trading Jalen Ramsey, I hope the Rams do get a lot in return for him. So.
the Rams are kind of stuck between like not a rock and a hard place, but like they built that 1 year to win the Super Bowl, and then they won the Super Bowl, and then it fell apart, and like I feel like they should start a rebuild, but they still have so many of those big core pieces that were part of that Super Bowl that I feel like they just don't know what to do. Because usually when a team like that, when they because that team was just like they were built in to win the Super Bowl that year. And then that's kind of like what even like the Blues did, and then they were stuck with that when they won the Stanley Cup a couple years ago, and they were stuck there. They're just stuck because they still have those core players, but like need to transition to a rebuild. But I feel like they're hesitant to transition to a rebuild because they don't want to because they just won the Super Bowl and still have those core guys. But I think what would be best for them is to just like literally just deal and get what you could get off of them, and then just start a new rebuild so that they could start getting better very quickly instead of have this drag on and then be like this for a couple more years. You know?
I agree with that.
I just think that they're having a hard time doing that, and I don't blame them. You know.
So one thing I want to say, it has not really been rumored what team they're going to trade Jalen Ramsey to. Some people on Twitter and Instagram have been putting together Jalen Ramsey on the Jets, which I think would be absolutely crazy. Of course, I'm a Jets fan, so I see it, but, you know, a DB group of Jordan Whitehead, Sauce Gardner, Jalen Ramsey, woo! That is the no-fly zone if I've ever heard one. So this actually transitions perfectly into our next point of about Jalen Ramsey. Do you think he should transition to safety? So, obviously, like he said, Bolivar said, he's getting up there in age. He still has the coverage skills. He's maybe a step slower than he was in his Jaguars days. He's still a great tackler. I think it makes perfect sense. Have him transition to safety. You know what? Like, have him cover half a field instead of one guy. I think that would honestly boost his value up and make his career way longer.
I disagree. I think it bumps his value down. I feel like an average cornerback is more valued than a good safety is. And I feel like he is. I mean, I feel like he should do that, but wait until he actually loses his steps. You know what I mean?
Like you're saying he's
like
still too good.
I'm saying that he's still a good corner, and that he should still play corner. And he'd be more useful to his team at corner, but like in like 2 or 3 years, if he keeps, like, he's not even regressing that. Like he is. Like he's not like the GOAT anymore. Like a couple years ago, but he's still decent. He still has a step. I'd say like wait 2 or 3 years to start doing that.
So for any of the older viewers, if we have any, someone that's maybe 40 plus, there was actually a legendary player that did this exact thing named Ronnie Lott. He was a cornerback for the Niners right when they got Joe Montana. Transitioned to safety, became, I think, the greatest safety of all time, maybe minus Ed Reed. So I think he could follow in his footsteps. He's definitely not as hard of a hitter as Ronnie Lott was, but I think he's way better in coverage. So that's something we could see, and maybe you could see Jalen Ramsey playing an extra 7-8 years. You know, so that's something to just think about.
I think Jalen Ramsey is way too selfish to move out of the quarterback spot, to be honest.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
I get that.
I don't think that he would want to.
I think if he gets traded, he wants to be like that top dog in a great defense. You know what I mean? Like, he wants to get traded to a team where he is that guy.
And I also think that Jalen Ramsey only transitioned to safety if that is the only position that they're offering him.
So say he goes to the Jets, hypothetically.
And they're like, we won't sign you as a cornerback, but we'll sign you as a safety.
Yeah, obviously he wouldn't be the number one corner.
I feel like that's the only way he would ever do that.
Yeah, obviously he wouldn't be the number one corner. But, I mean, I'm with you, though. I think his pride maybe gets in the way of him transitioning to safety. That was the biggest thing.
Definitely.
All right, so if you've been following our podcast, you know we love talking about Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr. Really no news has progressed since our last podcast. Aaron Rodgers came out of his hobbit hole and hasn't made a decision. I think he might still be on ecstasy or mushrooms. No one knows. But he has not made a decision. He's still in Green Bay and in limbo and is holding the weight of the NFL in his hands. He could retire. He could get traded. He could do absolutely anything, and it completely changes the landscape of the NFL. So I don't know what's going on with Rodgers. Anything you guys want to say about Rodgers? We talk about him a lot, so.
He is such a meme, dude. Oh, my God. Like, I feel like he's just trolling the whole NFL world. Like,
specifically the Packers.
He just knows how much, like, weight and coverage is around his name right now, and he's just, like, playing with everybody. Just like,
yeah, totally.
Nope, I'm not going to make a decision now. I won't make a decision in a week, and I won't make a decision in a month. So, you guys can wait.
We've already talked about all the possible scenarios.
Yeah.
The Raiders, the whatever, dude.
Well, yeah,
he just needs to
Jets.
make a decision.
We've
now.
talked about it way too much. Now all that's left to do is just sit.
Just wait.
Exactly.
I also no news about Derek Carr after last week meeting up with Robert Saleh, his brother, reporting that they absolutely hit it off, but no further news has come out about Derek Carr. As a Jets fan, I would love to see him in Gotham Green, but I don't know if it's going to happen or not. He's still looking for the Saints too, so it's still up in the air. Anything you guys want to say about Derek Carr? Once again, we talked about him a lot already, so
Same thing. We'll
Same
just
thing.
say we've
Yeah,
talked
just-
about it.
just
Let's
got to be a
just
waiting
say.
game. All right, my last topic. We're going to do a little special for the draft, but I want to get a little point in there about a player that we made a reel about, actually. Florida quarterback Anthony Richardson has been flying up mock boards. Was first kind of projected as a Lamar Jackson end of first, maybe early second, around their project, to now reports I've seen on Twitter and ESPN have been saying he's not leaving the top 10. Someone is grabbing him in the top 10. If you want to look at a reel, you can see his playmaking abilities absolutely bonkers. And I still think he's a project, but in the right system, that dude could be a Lamar Jackson. He could be that caliber of playmaker and game breaker.
The only thing I've
Potentially
seen
a better
about
arm,
him,
too.
yeah. So that's what I was gonna say. The thing that I keep seeing about him is that he's like a direct comparison to Lamar Jackson with a much better arm.
Yeah,
And
which is
which
crazy.
He's
people-
bigger, right? I think
people-
he's bigger too.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
a lot. Yeah, like thicker, no homo.